My speech is on Native Americans. Native Americans helped create Thanksgiving, which is a popular holiday for us to celebrate yearly today in America. But it is also very important for us to know different cultures and values of Native Americans. According to the U.S. Census, there are 4.5 million Native Americans in the U.S. today, which also includes many different subcultures and subcategories for the Native Americans, which can affect very different values and very many different situations in which they work together in different ways. I am here today to educate you on Native Americans. Talk versus silence. Native Americans tend to be very, very silent. They tend to only speak when they're disciplining their children. Their discipline tends to be only parent to child and not even parent with parent to child. They tend to only talk much when they're also telling stories to children. Storytelling to children tends to be a way to express different cultures, values, traditions, and it also expresses the history and experience of many different people in the tribe. They tend to be very silent because they tend to take the silence as a time to collect themselves and understand the situation in order to prevent serious fights or serious situations in which could go out of hand. This is why Native Americans tend to keep in their own culture because they tend to prevent any situations in which it is an argument or is a bad situation. Individualism versus collectivism. Native Americans are often defined as collectivists. Collectivists are often shown as people who stay in close groups. This is because Native Americans tend to work in their own community in order to survive. They tend to do things like farm together, live together, and they often live in very big households together, and the only time that Native Americans ever leave the household is when one leader of the household goes out to make money if it's absolutely necessary, which in big communities it really isn't. Native Americans tend to be defined as collectivists due to the fact that they often only live in their community and do not branch out well. The only time they branch out is if they need to communicate with other cultures around them. This also transitions into my next one, which is competitive versus cooperative. They tend to be very, very cooperative communities because it seems to be necessary for them, considering that they do live in a close community together, and in order to make things work very well, they need to cooperate. Cooperation is often viewed as a necessity, an absolute necessity, because if anything fails, all fails. They also view it as a necessity to be cooperative with the surrounding cultures, because if not, it causes many issues, which is very commonly taught in history. Native Americans tend to be very cooperative with each other due to the fact that they are very close-knitted and they need to be able to work together in order to work as a team for everything and everyone. Cultural values. Native Americans tend to use a sacrificial herb like tobacco or sometimes a honeydew herb or something like sage. This is often used as something as a sacrifice in order to express and show things. They often do this by lighting whatever it is, for example, sage. They put it into a small bunch and light it on fire and move it around as they are chanting or singing or dancing. Native Americans also tend to celebrate death as a positive thing. They view it as something like you are moving from this world into the spiritual world. They often celebrate it and they often view it as necessary for you to have to chant, and often they do a prayer or a chant in order to move one into the spiritual world. And they are often different situations where they view as if you do not celebrate and chant them into the next spiritual world, they are stuck here in this world as a spirit. They also often do something called a stomp dance into the harvest season. They view this as something that is very necessary to almost worship the sun in order to give them a good harvest season in the upcoming season. They do this by forming a circle around a fire, which is often a girl boy situation, which is a chain. It's often viewed as it's very important for you to form a chain. They often dance around the fire in this chain in order to send up good spirits. The fire is often viewed as the sun itself, and it's simply something that's very important and very releasing for them. You should now know more about the culture of Native Americans. Native Americans have many different beliefs and values, and they should always be respected as they try their hardest to respect ours as well. Thank you for listening to my speech.